Welcome to the Did You Know Quilting Show. I am Christina Whitney, and today's question is, did you know that there are many ways that you can load your backing? Today, I am going to show you how to load your backing in standard view on a Handi Quilter long arm frame. So I've already got my backing already pieced together. There was another video showing you how you can piece your backings if you need to. But what I want to do is figure out which way I'm going to load it. So with the piecing on here, I'm going to find my seams, and I want to have the seam running parallel with my poles here. That way, as I'm rolling it up, when that seam line gets to the pole, it's going to have an even thickness as it rolls up. Whereas if I had turned it and the seam was going this direction, as I was rolling, that seam would be building up on itself and getting fatter and fatter and fatter just in this one little section, and the rest of the quilt wouldn't be laying quite as flat. So that is the ideal. I do realize that sometimes that doesn't work, but that again is the ideal. So what I want to do is take my backing, and I'm just throwing it over the back there, but I want to find my center point. So I'm going to fold the backing in half, getting my edges even. Okay, there's my halfway point over here. And I am just going to take a little pair of scissors and make a little tiny notch in there. And then I want to do the same thing on the other end. So this is going to be a fairly big quilt. Okay, once again, I am finding my corners, folding it in half. Oops. Let's fold it there. Oh, wants to twist on me. Okay, got my halfway point. Take the scissors again, and I'm just going to take a little snip out of the backing fabric. And we'll put a little picture to show you that if you want. Then I'm going to open it back up. Now this is very important. Did you know, bonus question, that when loading your backing, you need to have the right side of the fabric facing down? Ask me how I know about that. I did do a quilt many, many years ago where I got all the way done quilting it and realized the backing was the wrong way. So not very fun. Anyway, okay, so I've got my fabric. I've just kind of tossed it over my backing bar. Now I like to do this where I take my fabric, and some people don't like to do this, but I do. I like to put it in between my backing bar and my top quilt or quilt top bar. So it's going to come right in between there, and I'm just going to rest it on the quilt top bar. Okay, I've got the fabric in between the two different bars, the backing bar and my front bar, and again I'm loading in standard view. I've found my little notch there that I cut out, and I'm looking at my bar here, and I've got my halfway point. So I'm just going to kind of put that on there, and I don't know if you noticed, but all the fabric fell down. So to prevent that, I'm going to take a magnet and just put it on the fabric just to hold it in place. I do one on the other side as well. Okay, now I want to be really clear that I am just draping this fabric onto the quilt top bar, but I'm going to be loading it to the backing bar. And the reason why I have it draped over is now I can take my leader on my backing bar and I can just pull it over and have it rest on that, what I'm going to call a tabletop. So it's going to make it a little bit easier for me to do the actual loading. Okay, Next thing I'm going to do is bring over my pin bowl. So I'm finding the center point of my leader, the center point of my fabric, lining those up, and then I'm going to pin horizontally. Now I can just work my way across the quilt top, keeping an even distance from the edge to my pin, as I did from this one over. And the spacing in between them, generally about a finger width or 2 finger widths. There's no like set in stone, it has to be that way. And you're going to find that that's kind of my attitude towards a lot of quilting. We have many, many options of ways to do things. Now, since we're talking about many options, I am pinning this, but you could also use a product called Red Snappers, and you can Google that, and that will show you what that is and how to use them. I've heard of people using zippers. To me, I like pins, that's what I'm used to. But another thing that I do like to do quite frequently, especially on a project where I'm going to be taking it on and off of my frame, say something that's maybe one of my personal quilts, but I need to do a customer quilt in between, or it's one that I am going to be doing a lot of work on. So what I will do is actually baste my leader to my backing fabric. And to do that, I just remove my leader because they're all Velcroed on. So just remove that, take it to my domestic machine, find that center point, do a basting stitch one way, I do a basting stitch the other way. So that is one way to do it. Okay, I'm going to move over and do the pinning on this side. I'm on my last pin, and I forgot to mention this on the other side, but usually when I get to my last pin, I take my pin and I'm going to always point it into the center. So on this end, I'm going to point it in this way. On the other end of my quilt, I'm going to point it in this way so that I don't have the pokey end sticking out where I can stab myself. Also, I want to mention these are Handi Quiter long arm pins. You can also get corsage pins. And now I'm just going to do a little tiny weave in and out to hold that extra secure on the end. So you can see here I've got my pins fairly evenly spaced, and the raw edge of the fabric and the edge of the leader are both going the same direction. Okay, now that I've got that, this is kind of the fun part. I'm just going to push that leader down in between, but I forgot to take my magnets off, so we'll remove those real quick. And then you can see how the fabric and the leader are going to fall down to the center of those two bars. Okay, so coming over and down through the middle. This is going to be really fun. I've got 2 machines, so it's taking up extra room. But I'm going to run around to the back of my machine. And I can just pull this fabric nice and straight. We'll see how well we can do it on this end. Okay. One last little section there. So I've got this nice and smooth. It's a good chance to remove any little fuzzies or something that you might have on there. Okay, I am going to now on my backing bar put my ratchet down, and you might notice that I have an extra hand wheel that I put on this particular pole, and I'm going to start twisting that. Can you hear that clicking noise from the ratchet? That's your sign that you've got it going the correct direction. Just going to continue winding it up. And it's nice that I've got it thrown over the back there because that's giving it a little bit of tension so that I can roll it smoothly. And I'm watching to make sure that the edges are kind of laying right on top of each other. And if I get to the point where I've got kind of some wrinklies like I'm getting here, this is where I can smooth things out. Just kind of massage the fabric. Do be careful of the pins if you're on the first round or two. Okay, I'm also watching this seam to make sure it's staying straight. And I'm going to continue rolling. Normally I wouldn't have to pull on this end, but with this extra machine in the way, my fabric's not laying too flat right there. So checking that seam, smoothing it out. I can do some winding from this end also. Something I do want to mention, as you are smoothing, make sure you're trying to do it evenly. A lot of people tend to smooth all the way to one end and pushing down, and then your fabric does not stay very straight and you have issues. So try to keep the smoothness going from the center out, and then keep rolling. Another tip that I have when you're loading your backing is a lot of times you'll get a crease or wrinkles or something. I don't like to have to iron it, so I just take my misting bottle and I'll just kind of mist over those sections. And then as I roll, it kind of acts like an iron, okay? And it will press it. Okay, I have now gotten pretty close to having the whole thing rolled up. And so I'm gonna go ahead and finish loading the backing. I've got a super leader on this bar. I am unwinding it all of the way. I'm grabbing the end of my leader. And I want to point out something that's very important when you're loading. Make sure this leader is underneath this top or this idle pole here, okay? If by chance you happen to forget that and you realize it after you're all done pinning, don't unpin, just unvelcro the leader, put it under the idle pole and reattach it to the bar, okay? I just saved you half your life. Okay, I'm looking at my leader. Do you love how many spots I've marked on there? It's actually this orange spot with the line that I sewed. You can see I sewed a line all the way down the center. That makes it easy to find stuff. But I'm going to find the notch and I'm going to attach it or line those up. Take my pin, pin it in place, and then I'm going to do that exact same thing with the quilt backing to the take-up pole that I did for the quilt backing to the backing bar. So just pinning all the way across. On the last one, weaving it in and out. And we'll continue on from there. Okay, finish the pinning. Whew. Lots of fun. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is start rolling up my backing. And depending on what machine you're on, you may or may not want to roll it all the way up, because as we start quilting at the top of our quilt, we don't want to be leaning too much to do like the straight plumb line. So a lot of times when I'm quilting, I'm on an Amara 24. So I'm going to put down my ratchet on my take-up pole, just like I did earlier on this backing pole. And I'm going to start rolling that up. Again, you hear that clicking, which tells you you're rolling the correct direction. And I'll just go like part way. And then I'll maybe wind up the backing a little bit. And at this point, I'm not super concerned with making it really tight because I want to be able to load my quilt top without having the backing get in the way. So that is one way out of a bazillion that you can load your backing. I'll probably post some other videos of different ways that you can do it. I do want to point out one thing over here on the end that's out of the view of this camera. Now notice that my leader got all twisted up on itself when I started. That's very important that you make sure you keep those leaders straight, because if they're going crooked to start out with, by the time you get to the bottom of your quilt, you're going to be having some fun. So I just make sure that those are nice and straight. Okay, I've got one more tip for you. If you load your backing and you find that one side's kind of saggy and the other side's tight and they're just not really even, one thing that you can do to try to balance that out is go over here and you're going to roll up onto the quilt take-up bar. And then when you're done doing that, then you'll roll back onto the backing bar. And you can go back and forth several times. And a lot of times that will help balance out some of the, I'm going to call it the unevenness. So that is another tip for you as you're loading your backing. Thank you for joining me today for the Did You Know Quilt Show. Make sure that you like and subscribe and leave comments. If you have ideas of videos that you would like to see or you have specific questions, please, please, please let me know. And that will help me move forward with the quilting videos for you. And make sure that you have fun quilting.